Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, Part 1, Chapter 4, Awakening. As Siddhartha left the grove in which the Buddha, the Perfect One, remained, in which Govinda remained, he felt that he had also left his former life behind him in the grove. As he slowly went on his way, his head was full of this thought. He reflected deeply until this feeling completely overwhelmed him, and he reached a point where he recognized causes. For to recognize causes, it seemed to him, is to think, and through thought alone feelings become knowledge and are not lost, but become real and begin to mature. Siddhartha reflected deeply as he went on his way. He realized that he was no longer a youth, he was now a man. He realized that something had left him, like the old skin that a snake sheds. Something was no longer in him, something that had accompanied him right through his youth and was part of him. This was the desire to have teachers and to listen to their teachings. He had left the last teacher he had met, even he, the greatest and wisest teacher, the holiest, the Buddha. He had to leave him. He could not accept his teachings. He could not accept his teachings. Slowly the thinker went on his way and asked himself, what is it that you wanted to learn from teachings and teachers? And although they taught you much, what was it they could not teach you? And he thought, it was the self, the character and nature of which I wished to learn. I wanted to rid myself of the self, to conquer it, but I could not conquer it. I could only deceive it, could fly from it, could only hide from it. Truly nothing in the world has occupied my thoughts as much as the self. This riddle, that I live, that I am one and am separated and different from everybody else, that I am Siddhartha, and about nothing in the world do I know less than about myself, about Siddhartha. The thinker, slowly going on his way, suddenly stood still, gripped by this thought, and another thought immediately arose from this one. It was, the reason why I do not know anything about myself, the reason why Siddhartha has remained alien and unknown to myself is due to one thing. To one single thing. I was afraid of myself. I was fleeing from myself. I was seeking Brahman, Atman. I wished to destroy myself, to get away from myself, in order to find in the unknown innermost the nucleus of all things, Atman, life, the divine, the absolute. But by doing so I lost myself on the way. Siddhartha looked up, and around him a smile crept over his face, and a strong feeling of awakening from a long dream spread right through his being. Immediately he walked on again quickly, like a man who knows what he has to do. Yes, he thought, breathing deeply, I will no longer try to escape from Siddhartha. I will no longer devote my thoughts to Atman and the sorrows of the world. I will no longer mutilate and destroy myself in order to find a secret behind the ruins. I will no longer study yoga, Veda, Atharva Veda, or asceticism, or any other teachings. I will learn from myself, be my own pupil. I will learn from myself the secret of Siddhartha. He looked around him as if seeing the world for the first time. The world was beautiful, strange, and mysterious. Here was blue, here was yellow, here was green, sky and river, woods and mountains, all beautiful, all mysterious and enchanting. And in the midst of it, he, Siddhartha, the awakened one, on the way to himself. All this yellow and blue, river and wood passed for the first time across Siddhartha's eyes. It was no longer the magic of Mara. It was no more the veil of Maya. It was no longer meaningless, and the chance diversities of the appearances of the world, despised by deep-thinking Brahmins who scorned diversity, who sought unity. Riva was Riva, and if the one and divine in Siddhartha secretly lived in blue and river, it was just the divine art and intention that there should be yellow and blue, there sky and wood, and here Siddhartha. Meaning and reality were not hidden somewhere behind things, they were in them, in all of them. How deaf and stupid I have been, he thought, walking on quickly. When anyone reads anything which he wishes to study, he does not despise the letters and punctuation marks, and call them illusion, chance, and worthless shells, but he reads them, he studies and loves them, letter by letter. But I, who wish to read the book of the world and the book of my own nature, did presume to despise the letters and signs. I called the world of appearances illusion. I called my eyes and tongue chance. Now it is over. I have awakened. I have indeed awakened and have only been born today. But as these thoughts passed through Siddhartha's mind, he suddenly stood still, as if a snake lay in his path. Then suddenly this also was clear to him. He, who was in fact like one who had awakened or was newly born, must begin his life completely afresh. When he left the Jetavana grove that morning, the grove of the illustrious one, already awakened, already on the way to himself, it was his intention, and it seemed the natural course for him after the years of his asceticism, to return to his home and his father. Now, however, in that moment as he stood still, as if a snake lay in his path, this thought also came to him. I am no longer what I was. I am no longer an ascetic, no longer a priest, no longer a Brahmin. What then shall I do at home with my father? Study? Offer sacrifices? Practice meditation? All this is over for me now. Siddhartha stood still, and for a moment an icy chill stole over him. He shivered inwardly like a small bird, like a bird or hare, when he realized how alone he was. He had been homeless for years and had not felt like this. Now he did feel it. Previously, when in deepest meditation, he was still his father's son. He was a Brahmin of high standing, a religious man. Now he was only Siddhartha, the awakened, otherwise nothing else. He breathed in deeply, and for a moment he shuddered. Nobody was so alone as he. He was no nobleman belonging to any aristocracy, no artisan belonging to any guild and finding refuge in it, sharing its life and language. He was no Brahmin sharing the life of the Brahmins, no ascetic belonging to the Shamanas. Even the most secluded hermit in the woods was not one and alone. He also belonged to a class of people. Govinda had become a monk, and thousands of monks were his brothers, wore the same gown, shared his beliefs, and spoke his language. But he, Siddhartha, where did he belong? Whose life would he share? Whose language would he speak? At that moment, when the world around him melted away, when he stood alone like a star in the heavens, he was overwhelmed by a feeling of icy despair. But he was more firmly himself than ever. That was the last shudder of his awakening, the last pains of birth. Immediately he moved on again and began to walk quickly and impatiently, no longer homewards, no longer to his father, no longer looking backwards.